One thing that is characteristically Indian is the social classes, or we call them castes. Castes come about during the Aryan period. They established a social structure with characteristics specifically required and reserved for each level. The Aryans initially were divided between herders and cultivators, chiefs and priests. Contracts with the Dravidians led to a more complicated social structure. The Aryan use of the word varna, or color, distinguished the levels of caste systems. The Aryan considered themselves lighter skinned, wheat colored, while the Dravidians were darker skinned. Miscegenation was not allowed. Marriage between the two were forbidden, and there were strict penalties for sexual relations between the two. After about 1000 BC, four main levels of castes appeared. Priests are on top, then you have the warriors and aristocrats, the peasants, and then finally the untouchables, butchers, undertakers, workers whose jobs made others believe that their very touch polluted their social betters. The four levels of the caste system worked until about 600 BC. As the Vedic society became more complex, particularly when you have the growth of occupations, a subcaste system emerges, known as the jati. The jati were determined by occupation, and the offspring of the jati remained in that same occupation and level. As Indian society grew in complexity, so did the number of jati, which at its height in the 18th and 19th centuries AD grew to several thousand. Each varna had its own jati, and the Brahmins alone divided amongst, with the Brahmins alone divided amongst 1,800 levels. The jati determined much of Indian society. Members of the jati ate with each other and intermarried. There were rules regulating how to address different castes along with behavior. Contrary to popular perception, though, the caste was not as rigid and accommodated whenever Indian society changed. Occasionally, members of lower class would take on new work, thus getting a promotion. Brahmins sometimes got demoted due to misfortune. So mobility within the caste system was usually the result of an entire jati improving their status on a collective basis. In addition, we to the caste and the jati providing social organization for Aryan society, it leads to a patriarchal society. All political positions occupied by men. Women had influence within the family, but no public authority. Only men could inherit their family's property. Unless there was no male issue, then women could inherit. Men were exclusively performing the rituals to honor the ancestors. When a woman married, she left her father's family and joined her husband's. Some women took the extreme step of showing their dependence on their husbands through a practice called sati, throwing themselves in the funeral pyres of their dead husbands to join them in death. This practice was never popular and was more common for widows of higher social status.